Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I bet you'll never guess what we're doing on the 56 Chevy today. Well, if you guess more rust repair, you're actually right, because there's plenty more to do. And today we're going to be tackling the window channels around the rear window. So let's jump in and get started. Don't worry, there's no shortage of rust or rot on this car. Now we're dealing with around the back window. Now I know I had showed this possibly in another video. This car had the back window in it when I bought it. It's up here now. So I pulled the trim off, yanked the glass out, and now we have a better idea of what we're looking at. And I probably should have left that in. Even down here in the pillar. So I think this actually might be skinned, this piece. I have a feeling that gets tacked onto the pillar here with a couple of spot welds. Either way, it's not in very good shape. So we're going to have to address that, and that is going to be the next thing that we focus on. So I'm going to continue sanding, try and get this cleaned up as much as possible, and figure out a plan to attack the next spot on this car. So I have the new skin, or the bottom half of the skin, welded on here. And we came around basically to where the trouble area inside the window channel stopped. I think what I'm going to try is to grind out some of this rotted metal here with the die grinder and a carbide tip. We'll clean out as much as we possibly can. And then once we do, I will trim. I left a little bit extra on here. I'll trim this down to match the contour of the pillar, which is basically just going to be like a straight line down there. And then this was done more so just to strengthen the metal here. So we'll trim that, grind that flush, and then I can focus on cutting and bending a new panel to go inside the channel. And hopefully that'll work. Okay, what I'm doing here is using painter's tape, basically just to get the shape of the patch that I need to make in order to close up this window channel. Typically I use oak tag, but for something with this many curves, I find the tape a little bit easier because you can do it in multiple pieces. And what I'll do is I'll lay it across the piece, obviously trying to keep the curvature along the window channel uniform. Put the camera down for a second, I'll show you. So now obviously I'm butting this piece of tape up against the existing channel, and then this piece is just getting taped along the seam that we have on the quarter panel. And then I'll usually take, you could use a hammer. I can't find a hammer right now because the garage is a mess. But just anything with a hard surface, and just tap along, and that will help you cut along the edge of the seam. Go back and forth too. And then it's, because the metal that we're working with isn't really the best, it's sometimes a little bit of a pain getting it started, but usually you can just yank along that seam. And there you go. So I'm going to continue on this. I probably have another 2 to 3 pieces to do. But once we get this entire piece covered with the tape, we can then pull that out. And the nice thing about using tape, obviously sticky, we'll just shove that onto the piece of metal that you're going to use, cut it up, and then we can start working on bending it and fitting it inside the channel. All right, pretty straightforward. Took the tape off after I had it shaped, traced it out with a Sharpie. I'll go ahead and cut that out, and then we can start fitting that into the channel. Okay, panel's cut out. I sprayed both the patch and the channel with weld-through primer just to add a little bit of protection to that. And now we get to try and bend that into place. It's going to be a little tough to do to hold the camera while I'm doing that, so I might put that down for a second and see where I can get. and all done. Not totally smooth, but the fact of the matter is that it's going to be behind the glass and the trim anyway, and the most important thing is that it's all metal. So we've achieved that. Obviously some body work to do here, but we'll take care of that when we actually strip the car down to bare metal and start doing the body work. Let me show you the other side. Still haven't run the vacuum over here, but see, we got some pretty decent holes. This piece is completely loose, missing a good chunk there. Got some rot in between the package tray. Small spot there. And I haven't pulled the trim off on this side, but I think it's safe to say that it's probably just as bad as the other side. So I'm going to move this car away from the wall because it's right up against it. We'll shift the back end over and get to work on this side. For this side, I think what I'm going to try to do is cut this ridge here and maybe here. This piece actually seems pretty strong, and I know it seems kind of weird to leave that small, tiny little piece like that, but the more I have as a reference as I kind of bring that hatch in, the better. So I think that's the plan. Cut there, clean up this flange, get a piece welded in there, connect those two, and then we can move on to this side. This car doesn't actually get any better. Every time I look at it, there's more rust, but we'll get started. Alright, so to rebuild our ridge, I think I'm actually going to use a piece of our quarter panel patch to fill that in. So what we'll do is just line it up where it's going to be roughly. Cut that. Okay, with our piece welded in, I ground that down. It's acceptable. It's not perfect, but it's going to be hidden by the window trim anyway. And now there's fresh metal in there. Might be hard to see on there, but I did trace out a line basically connecting the two pieces of that channel. So I'm going to go ahead, we'll zip that, do a little bit more grinding on the sides there, kind of make everything nice and flush, and then we can move on to this disaster over here. All right, so for this section of the channel, it's a little bit more tricky because not only do you have the shape of the window, but then you also have the shape of the channel on the bottom. Now they sell contour gauges that you can usually use, but those usually, unless they sell different ones now, which they probably do, it usually won't account for two different planes of your curve. So I took a piece of 4043 TIG welding wire, kind of laid it in the channel, pressed it till I got the shape that I wanted. You kind of see the rod there. And then I just went and traced that out on my next piece of steel that we're going to use to patch that. So I'll get that cut out. I'll see how far off I am with that measurement. Once we get that channel welded in, we can start making up for the holes that we have there. I have that piece bent up. Fits in the channel, lines up pretty well. So I'll go ahead, buzz that in, cut that flush so it matches the height of the rest of the channel, and then we can, from there, we can move on and start addressing these holes here. And our finished product. Well, actually, I'm going to put a little tiny bit of filler in there and just kind of smear it just to kind of round out the edges. It is a little difficult to get a grinder in there. But our window channel is back together, all metal. So like I said, a little bit of filler, smooth that out, throw a coat of primer on it, and this project is done. Smooth that out a tiny bit, some primer on there just to protect the bare metal that we welded in. That's it. One more step, done. So, as always, thank you guys very, very much for watching. I really appreciate it. This car is just about ready to come off the frame, and I think that's going to be our next video. I'm going to start working on that now. See you guys next time.